What are 5 NLP patterns we can do every day to improve ourselves? That is the topic of this question I received right here. 5 NLP patterns to do daily to improve your life. I had made a few videos about this, but I guess they were not satisfactory, maybe for you. Also, let's not forget I have a manual that is available on my website for free. You can just download it under the section books on my website. It is called Mastering Your Internal States, and it will give you probably many insights about how to use anchoring, submodalities, all sorts of tools to improve your state of mind, your mindset, your feelings maybe, if they run wild sometimes. I just include many things, tools and insights and personal stories about this in that. That being said, I will give you your 5 patterns since you asked for it. I will maintain that as short as possible because giving all of them in detail would take like 5 hours of a video. So I will just describe them briefly and giving you the resources to dig more into it if you wish. The first one I would like to talk about is a language pattern that you can stick on your wall somewhere eventually, a question you can ask yourself to develop more awareness. Before talking about changing your states or improving anything, and improve is consequence of changing to some extent, we talk about awareness because most people's problem is not even changing their state, it is being aware of which negative state they are into at any moment. Usually we'll just let other people or outside events to condition how we feel today, and we are not even aware of when the negative state started. So the first big thing before using NLP and before being able to change yourself is to become more aware of when do I get depressed, sad, angry, pissed off, lonely? When do I start to experience those states? And what was the trigger that made me get into those negative states? Was it something I told myself? Was it something I heard on the news? Was it because I just felt the presence of this very negative person in my life, and because of that I don't really feel well? You need to investigate first, where do that come from? And once you know the main causes, then we can act upon it more easily, I tend to think. So the first technique or the first pattern would be a language pattern, which is, what is the main reason I feel unhappy today? And there is many things to understand behind that. Let me just show you my screen right here. So, for example, if we write down that phrase word by word, so what's the main reason I feel unhappy today? Of course, it is phrased in the negative, and some NLP weirdos might say, oh, this is bad because it is asking about eliciting a negative feeling. First of all, not completely, because unhappy is the negative form of happy. And as you know, if you have had any course in NLP, the unconscious mind does not understand negation. So by framing that suggestion as a negative, like a negative of a positive word, you are already conditioning your mind to go fish for something positive. That is for the nerd part of this video. What is the main reason I feel unhappy today? And you want to ask that every morning because you want to become more aware of the things that keep coming back. Some things might be random and aleatory, and you won't even need to waste any time on that. Some things keep coming back. Some things every day, they keep coming back, and you keep being triggered or annoyed or sad because of the same exact thing that you keep pushing away and not looking at. For me, for a long time, it was about because of loneliness. And I handled that from there. But I noticed from all the things that were bothering me at this time, this one kept coming back all the time, nonstop. And the main reason I like this question is because whenever you find such nominalization, because as you know, loneliness, lack of confidence, no motivation, all of those are nominalization that you can challenge. And I challenged this one on my end by asking, how exactly do I, it's not a word, but whatever, lonelynize myself. Of course, it is not a real verb, but turning any nominalization into a verb makes it easier to notice what by which process your mind made you or body made you experience that negative state. And by becoming more aware of that, I noticed it was just a feeling in my chest in the end. It was not even something in my reality, it was just a feeling in my chest. So when I challenged this and used some other techniques to handle that feeling, well, it started getting much better just because of that. Not because I had to earn $1 million or because I had to change this or this or that. Just a feeling in my chest, nothing else. And most people get themselves stuck into justifying with extremely complex reasons why they feel bad, whereas sometimes it is just a fleeting feeling anyway. Of course, you might investigate what caused it more deeply, but just to say changing it is not hard at all. And it is not hard because of the next techniques we are going to elaborate here. So, elaborate on. So the first one is becoming more aware by asking yourself what exactly causes you to feel bad or to feel unhappy. The second technique, second pattern is going to revolve around sub-modalities, and that is the one I won't get too much into because this one would take 3 hours by itself if I was really giving all the details and all the methods to incorporate it. But submodalities, you have a great book by Bandler called The Insider's Guide to Submodalities, published in 1980, I think, around that time. And it gives you all the exercises, all the methods to develop that acuity and that power somehow to alter your states, starting by the most basic techniques and going into more advanced ones. The idea of submodalities is basically emotional freedom. And in the manual I talked about in the beginning of this video, you will find many examples of that. Emotional freedom in the sense that you can understand in which state you are in today and move into another state. Obviously, there is a lot of ecological thinking to have about this, to not try to install a state in yourself that is not healthy. By this, I mean trying to be motivated all the time while ignoring why you feel lonely. That is definitely not the thing I would recommend. At least once you have gotten to the core of what was making you so bad, feeling so unhappy, then we can act upon this. But more specifically, the way I like to use some modalities, because you asked about daily things to repeat. So one thing I could definitely encourage using every day with submodalities is picturing something. You pick an image in your mind of something that you think in your life it would be too difficult to accomplish right now. What in your perception is something you would like to do, something you know deep down you definitely want to do this, but in your mind it is just too difficult, impossible, very far away in the future, or there are too many blockages between you and that thing. What could be an example of that? For example, pun intended. You pick an image of this in your head. Okay, I can't achieve this. I can't stop smoking so easily. Okay, what would it look like if I was successfully stopping to smoke? What would I look like from a distance? You just take whatever image comes to your mind, and then you notice what is the texture of that image. What does it look like? Is it shady? Is it black and white? Is it in colors? Do I look? What is my facial expression in that image? What do I look like? And how is the image? Is it like with a lot of lightning around? Is it outside or inside? You just notice what that image looks like. Then you are going to pick another image, this time of something you have accomplished in your past, and more specifically, something you have accomplished extremely easily. Something, at least by now, if we were to ask you, can you do this? Would be super easy. Something, for example, that was hard to do for you as a child, and now that you are a grown adult, very easy. What is an example of that? Once you have this example in mind, you do the exact same thing. You notice in your mind what does look like the image of something I can do very easily. And then you are going to stick the other image on the second one. So you are going to pick again the image of stop smoking, for example, if it is a goal for you that you think is too difficult, for example. You take that image again, but you change the submodalities. Therefore, you stick that image on the one where you do something where you know this thing is very easy to accomplish. And if in the image where you noticed that you looked at that was very easy to accomplish, if in that image, for example, you saw something much bigger because the image was much brighter and broader, and you noticed there was a different color shading and there were other people around you. Okay, all of those details, you add them into the image of the thing you wish you could do, but that is too difficult. And as you do this process for real in your head, you notice what kind of change happen, what new thoughts pop up when you do that change. It requires some calmness of mind to do that properly. It is almost like a not even almost, it is a self-hypnosis process, to be honest. It is a self-hypnotic process where you dive into your mind and change the structure of your thoughts, because in the end, whatever you think is possible or impossible, it's just a matter of how you have mentalized it. I think there was a great quote about this that I forgot. Basically, we always imprison ourselves in the thoughts that we think is reality instead of reality itself, something around those lines. So even if that may seem overly simplistic to just have a different image of something in your head, that alone is the reason why you don't succeed at something you don't succeed at. Because you have made an image in your head, or you rehearsed dialogues in your head for why you will not achieve that. If we were to change that, like an athlete does unconsciously, by an image of something you have successfully done, and that by now is very easy for you, then your whole neurology is going to rewire. And your nervous system is going to send different electrical information into your body, into your nerves, everything, to propel you into action more easily. So that is one that you can do every day also, even if out of those 5 patterns, I don't think you will have the time to do all of them every day, but I'm just giving you the 5 you asked for, and then you can just pick the one that is the most relevant at this moment. Then the third technique, the third pattern that you might use, which might actually even be a prerequisite for the second one, is to develop an encore for emotional distance. What I mean by that is many of those techniques in NLP, in self-help, they look great on paper, but most people don't use them because they are not aware of when their state is getting very negative, very sad, very depressed. They don't get aware soon enough of when that is happening, and then they just feel like shit, and then they just see everything that's around them as the state they are into. If you try to use some anchoring or some modalities for positive mood, but you are in a very low and depressed state, it's probably not going to do anything. In those cases, you need an intermediate state to break the negative thing you were suffering from, at least momentarily, at least the time to use the positive anchoring meditation or whatever, or self-hypnosis. So breaking the negative state, at least momentarily, doesn't mean you shouldn't investigate more deeply what happened and go to therapy if it is really something difficult. At least at the moment, you can have this emotional freedom to interrupt that state and get into a positive mood if you need it for your work, because you are in a moment where you just can't allow yourself to feel bad at this moment. Then, of course, do process the bad feeling later when you have time, but sometimes you just need in life to be productive at this moment. So the idea of anchoring, having developed an anchor for emotional distance, is to develop that possibility to just switch off at some moment the negative feeling. And I used to develop that by listening to very calm peaceful music. You have dozens and dozens of videos like this on YouTube that give you some, monks, meditative, peaceful music of nature. I used to listen to this and meditate at the same time from the best I could, because in the beginning it was very difficult to keep my mind quiet. I used to do this and to do this movement, this hand gesture at the same time, because I had been watching too many martial arts movies, obviously, or maybe Naruto, and I just kept doing that. And at some point, it became an encore. So now, if I maybe not if I just do the movement, if I even if I slightly feel it right now, but when I do the movement and I focus on that music in my head at the same time, I can get back into at least a state, a mental calmness, a state of mind calm enough to think clearly. That is the whole purpose. That alone won't make you feel happier every day, but that alone will be enough to give you mental clarity when you need it. And especially if you need to be more productive in your career, or you want to handle conflicts at home with your loved ones, at least having a resource like this that can help you get your mind quieter when you need it is of immense help, because too many people get into inflammatory conflicts solely because they haven't gotten out of their negative state when they go back home. They are still in a very pissed off, enraged, sad mood, and then they go back home, and the least thing you tell them is going to make them explode, uh, either enraged or either they're going to cry. But in your mind, you didn't do anything bad, but anything wrong, but they get really mad or really sad because they were already accumulating too much. So having that kind of anchor allows you to pause and stop all those negative moods and mindsets and elaborate on a solution. Again, that alone won't be enough, but that alone is the bridge. That calmness, emotional distance anchor is the bridge to allow you to figure out a solution for whatever you are dealing with. Once your mind gets quiet and calm enough, then you can move on to figuring out, okay, there is this problem, what do I do about it? Maybe I can't do something today, but at least I can do something else that will make me think less about it, for example. Then, pattern number 4, it will be to write down a problem you have. You write it down with as many details as you can, and we could go into chunking down the notions that are unclear in the way you represent that problem for yourself right now. But what I like to do is writing down a problem, whatever it is, and it might come with any metaphoric terms if you can't express clearly what happens, whatever it is. You just need a visual representation, written form of what's happening. Maybe with your loved ones, maybe with your health, whatever it is, maybe with financial, whatever it is, you write down the problem you are experiencing, and then you are going to use all of the 3 sensory modalities to enhance your creativity about how to handle this. This is much more advanced in NLP when we go into specific modeling, things that Robert Dills talked about extensively. You are going to alter the position of your body, your physiology, so that you enhance your brain's capacity to use all of the modalities together. What it means specifically is you are going to tilt your head on the side to activate more easily the auditory system. As you know, when people listen carefully in a conversation, they tend to do this, and touch your chin to activate the inner dialogue. When people do this, usually they talk to themselves, and then you're going to move your eyes up to activate the visual system. And finally, you have your hand exactly here on your belly, because touching your belly activates the kinesthetic system. We tend to say our belly is the second brain, which is very true in many many explanations. You have this posture, touching your chin, touching your belly, touching your chin, having the head tilted and having your eyes up, and then you keep thinking about this problem you wrote down by moving your eyes all around, which is one prerequisite of the EMDR therapy, moving the eyes to activate all the sensory representations of the brain and activates all of the other resources of your brain capacity. When doing this all at the same time, it's going to unlock new thoughts, new perceptions, and alter the structure of how you have been representing that problem. So when you used to be stuck with something, you didn't know how to handle it, how to recover from it, those change of physiology and change of mental patterns can help you figure out new solutions you never thought about. Or at least maybe it's going to confuse you enough to stop being tense about this problem. If the thing is something you have suffered from for a while, maybe this alone again is going to be a bridge. You are going to confuse your brain by doing all of this, and it will be enough to at least allow you to get some distance from the thing you are suffering from. And I talked about this 2 videos ago on the how to set goals and find creative ideas about how to achieve them. And the final one, the final pattern is this time again a language pattern like the first one that I learned actually pretty recently, and I didn't even know that one. So like you can see, we can still learn things every day. It was, I'm going to write it down so that you can see it directly. No, not this one. It is it's impossible for me to, and you write down whatever is the thing you think is impossible for me. Any goal you don't think you can achieve, anything you think is too complicated, too difficult, complicated, whatever, frightening, any adjective you have to describe why you are being limited right now in your goals, in your life, in whatever, you write down what it is to change my career, for example. And you write down at the end, and I found this really brilliant, unless it's impossible for me, unless what? Unless that is going to open a new pathway in your brain. When they modeled Ericksonian hypnosis, they noticed everything, all it was doing at the end was just changing the perception of reality. Because physical events can't change that easily in most cases. However, the perception you have of those events can change very fast. So whenever you think about something that is impossible, too complicated, too frightening, you don't have enough capacities, enough skills to accomplish it, yeah, of course it is impossible. It is impossible unless what would need to happen or what would have to be true if it was possible. And I started playing with that pattern for myself, and I noticed how many things did I think were, how many things, despite my level of awareness with all those shit, how many things was I still considering impossible that actually was just self-inflicted limitations. I found this to be a great one. It comes from Ben Hardy. You know, I think the book is "Be Your Future Self Now" by Ben Hardy, and that was such a clever thing that I'm using it like all the time, definitely. So those are the 5 patterns you can use every day. I guess you won't use all of them, so maybe just pick one you think is really relevant. And from there, you can also read, as I said, the document Mastering Your Internal States, available on my website under the section books. It is completely free. This one, at least, is completely free. My next book also is coming on January 20. It will be called Magical Linguistics, and you will find hundreds, literally hundreds of language patterns like those to open the mind and to lead somebody in a more positive state every time you want to help them. And also defend yourself if you need to defend yourself by using language as a weapon. More on that later. That being said, thank you for listening and see you in the next